If you're a 90s kid like me, you have fond memories of Toys R Us. It was basically a child's heaven, an entire store the size of Walmart, but only with toys. Infinite rows of Pokemon cards, Lisa Frank, Game Boys, Super Soakers, Tamagotchis, everything. Every time my sister and I went, it would be an exercise in manipulation. How much could we persuade our parents to buy for us? Because if they'd let us, we'd buy out the whole store. When I heard that Toys R Us went bankrupt, I found myself sadly nostalgic. One by one, the stores disappeared. The ones around where I live met the same fate as the Kmarts before them. They became abandoned concrete structures surrounded by an empty parking lot filled with potholes. And like the Kmarts, it seemed like they could never find the right size or style to lease the space. I saw a Spirit Halloween in one once, but it stood empty for years before eventually getting torn down. But then my sister Jess and I went on a road trip together to visit our sick mom. And during the drive, somewhere in the middle of Indiana, we found a Toys R Us that was open. I couldn't believe my eyes. We'd gotten lost trying to find our way back to the highway after stopping for fast food. We found ourselves in an empty parking lot, surrounded on two sides by a thick forest of pine trees, but in the center was a large building with the colorful letters, Toys R Us. "Oh my gosh," Jess gasped. "I thought they all closed." But the store was clearly open. The lights shone brightly from inside, showing rows and rows of toys through the large windows. I slowed to a stop. "Can we go in?" I asked Jess. "For old time's sake? Let's do it." I pulled into a parking space and the two of us approached. I had to admit, I was pretty excited. What is it about hitting your early 30s that seems to punch up the nostalgia in your brain? It's like some weird defense mechanism, like your brain knows it's not so young anymore, and it's desperately trying to cling to the past. Maybe we also yearn for a time before smartphones and social media, when the highest tech thing was a 3-inch LCD screen showing Pokemon. I don't know. By the time we reached the glass doors, my body was thrumming with excitement. For a second, I thought they might not open, but with a quiet whoosh, they did. We stepped inside, and for a second, we just stared. Colorful aisles of toys as far as the eye could see. Paradise for a kid, a trip down memory lane for the rest of us. But then I took a closer look, and I realized there wasn't any Minecraft, or Paw Patrol, or newfangled stuff. There was a display for Pokemon, featuring Pikachu and the original 3 starters, not the weird-ass new ones nobody likes. There was a display of Super Soakers and Nerf guns, front and center. It felt like stepping back in time, and then it hit me. What was really going on here? Someone must have decided to snatch up a business opportunity. They weren't selling toys, they were selling nostalgia. Someone had opened up a store called Toys R Us, not caring about copyright infringement, and filled it with 90s and 00s toys. They must be packed when it isn't almost 10 at night. Wait, why was a toy store open at almost 10 at night? "Welcome to Toys R Us," a voice called out from behind me. I turned to see the store's only cashier, a woman in her late teens or early 20s, very pretty, with dark hair in a bun and strands falling around her face. She was wearing one of those choker necklaces that were so popular years ago, giving off a little bit of a goth vibe. "Hi," I called out, giving her a big grin. I was about to ask her if they had any Lisa Frank stuff. I loved that stuff as a kid, but Jess broke me from my thoughts. "Oh my gosh, they have Tamagotchis!" she exclaimed, running over to one of the aisles. She picked up one of the keychains in her hand. "I always let them die. Maybe this is my chance to redeem myself." "You'll just let it die, again." I laughed. "You can't even keep your plants alive." She stuck her tongue out at me. I walked over to the Pokemon display, picking up a booster pack of cards. "This looks like one of the original ones. Don't these go for like $300? "Oh my gosh," Jess said, but the price tag just said $7.99. There were only 2 left, so Jess and I each grabbed one, and then we continued deeper into the store. "Do you remember when Mom went to every store like a madman, looking for a stuffed Vulpix?" I asked. "That was your favorite, and they were sold out everywhere, and she was tearing her hair out trying to find one." "I remember," Jess replied as we walked down the aisle. "She really didn't have to do that. But you were so happy. I remember the grin on your face. You wouldn't let go of that thing for weeks." As we walked, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead. The air was warm and damp. I could feel myself start to sweat. I found myself picking up the pace, walking faster towards the end of the aisle. Couldn't really tell you why, just a feeling, I guess. "Do you want to get anything else?" Jess asked. "I'd love to snag one of those Lisa Frank notebooks, honestly, with the unicorn on it." "What was his name? Charlie?" She shrugged. "Lisa Frank was your thing, not mine." That was one thing I hated about being an adult. How you were expected to take the color out of everything in your life. And I don't mean that as a metaphor. Everyone wears beige and gray now. Houses are all white and black, sterile and desaturated. Why is it wrong for a 30-year-old woman to have a rainbow unicorn notebook? I mean, not for professional meetings, sure, but at home. Society won't frown upon social media or porn or vaping, but they'll look at you differently the second they see your childish unicorn notebook. Fuck it. I was getting that notebook, and it would live on my desk proudly. We made it to the end of the aisle. I looked both ways. The back wall seemed to stretch forever in either direction. The store seemed a lot bigger now that we were inside of it. "Which way?" Jess shrugged. "I have no idea." I glanced over the back wall. Boxes upon boxes of puzzles and games were stacked on each other, like mousetrap and chutes and ladders. I glanced down the aisles, and then I saw a glimpse of the familiar, rainbowy colors peeking out of an aisle several aisles down. "Lisa Frank's over there," I said. But Jess was already walking in the opposite direction, towards a display of Furbies. A shudder went through me. I hated those things. "I'll catch up with you in a second," I said, starting towards Lisa Frank. I speed-walked along the back wall, towards the colorful aisle that was calling to me like a chorus of angels. That old, childlike excitement swelled through me as I got close. I couldn't believe how excited I was. I'm a grown woman, damn it! But that's the power of nostalgia, I guess. When I got there, however, I stopped dead. There were notebooks and folders and plushies, all right, except there was something horribly wrong with them. In front of me, there was a notebook featuring the familiar Lisa Frank yellow Labradors. But their eyes weren't brown. They were pure white with just a single dot in each eye for the pupil, and their mouths were open to reveal multiple rows of razor-sharp teeth. And the unicorn notebook I so desired, its rainbow horn was covered in bright red liquid, as if it had just gored someone. What the fuck? How are they selling this to children? I grabbed one of the rainbow leopard plushies off the shelves. One of its eyes was missing, replaced with a single white button. It reminded me of the mascots from Five Nights at Freddy's. Deteriorated, damaged, taken over by something else entirely. I ran out of the aisle and down the back wall again, calling for Jess. As I did, though, I saw the games more clearly. The mousetrap game showed a real-life mouse getting decapitated as kids watched, their mouths open with laughter. There was a game called Stab Your Dad, which showed a hand being pierced by dozens of tiny little needles, and a variant of Operation, which showed a drawing of children cutting into a real corpse. I broke into a sprint and finally found Jess, holding a gray Furby. "We've got to get out of here," I panted. "I know." She held out the Furby to me, and now I heard its little voice, repeating the same 3 words over and over. "I'm watching you. I'm watching you." She tossed it back on the shelf, and the two of us hurried towards the exit, not breaking into a run in case that prompted the cashier or someone else to chase us. But as soon as we left the aisle, the air shifted. Something felt different. The air pressure, the temperature, the lighting. Noise bubbled in as though we'd just surfaced from underwater. What the hell? Sunlight streamed through the windows. The store was packed. Women in jeans and windbreakers chased after little kids toddling through the store. Laughter and squeals of delight filled the aisles. Jess turned to me, mouth hanging open. "You can go back if you'd like." I wheeled around to see the goth girl from earlier standing behind us. Right behind us. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "Time isn't set in stone. You can go back to the way things were." At this distance, I realized she wasn't as young as I'd thought. Her makeup caked into fine lines around her eyes, and she had a few strands of silver hair poking out at her temples. Our age, or a little older. Someone who was forged in the 90s like us. Before I could say anything else, Jess grabbed my arm. "Look." I turned, and my jaw went slack. Our mother was entering the store. purple windbreaker, chin-length blonde hair in a neat bob. And in tow, a little girl with dark, wavy hair, and another, even littler girl, with blonde hair like her mom. "That's us," I whispered. We stared, paralyzed, as the child versions of us stopped at the Pokemon display. Our mom leaned over and told us something, and we giggled. "This can't be real." "So are you going to join them?" the woman behind us asked. For a second, with every fiber of my being, I wanted to go. What I wouldn't give to be back there 30 years ago before everything happened. Before the disasters of our time, before 9/11, before COVID, before wars and genocides, before social media and smartphones and ads took over everything. I knew how horrible this world could be before I realized life was less like a walk in the park and more like a climb up a mountain. Blood, sweat, and tears. Before I knew evil, before I knew true pain, before I knew anything at all, and most important of all, before Mom got sick. I stared into the Toys R Us, at the golden sunlight and the happy faces, and all I could think of was taking a step forward. Then Mom turned around, and I stopped dead in my tracks. Her face was all wrong. Her eyes were two empty sockets, two black pits, staring out at us. Her mouth was twisted in a horrible smile. It was only for the tiniest instant, but I saw it, clear as day. That's not Mom. When I turned around, however, I saw something far more terrifying. Jess was taking a step forward. "No!" I lurched forward and wrapped my arms around her waist. I pulled her back. We both stumbled, nearly losing our balance. Jess was crying, clawing at my arms. "I need to go," she whimpered. "I need to see Mom." When I pulled her to her feet, holding her back with all my strength, everyone in the store was looking at us. Each and every one had those horrible, empty eye sockets. "Run!" I shouted. We turned around, pushing past the goth woman, sprinting down the aisle. My lungs burned, but I kept pushing forward. We turned the corner at the back wall and kept running. I don't know exactly how long we ran for, but somehow we found ourselves at the front of the store again. It had reverted back to normal. We ran through the glass doors and burst into the parking lot, taking in lungfuls of the cool night air. Then we leapt into the car and peeled away. Jess could barely form words. Neither could I. "You saw it all right?" she asked finally. "Mom? Us?" "Yeah," I replied. And then we both heard a crinkling sound from within the car. Jess scowled. She reached back and pulled something out of her butt pocket. "Oh no," she muttered. "I accidentally took that booster pack of Pokemon cards with us. I must have put it in my pocket when I was looking at the Furbies or something." "Throw it out the window," I said. "What?" "You don't want those things coming back and looking for it. Throw it out the window." "But it's like $300. It's not messed up like the other toys. I think it's actually an original pack. Throw it out the window." Okay, Jess said. She rolled down the window and let the pack of cards flutter out into the breeze. Then we continued driving towards our mom's house, slightly less afraid of what was to come.